when I decided I was going to do this, I was like, I want to do this because I want to make this a business. I want to do this as something that I do as a career, right? Like if you just want to do it as a hobby, then it's just always going to be a hobby.
Hey, what's up, friends? Grant Baldwin here. Welcome back to the Speak Aloud podcast. Today, we are hanging out with Amy Burton, who is a super successful student who went through our program about a year and a half ago or so, is absolutely killing it. And so excited to have her join us today in beautiful, freezing cold Alaska, which we're going to talk about. So, Amy, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you, Grant. Appreciate it.
All right. Why don't you start by kind of painting the picture for us in terms of speaking? How much speaking are you doing? Who are you speaking to? How does speaking fit into your business?
Yeah, I speak to educators and help them understand how to use coaching techniques in the classroom to reduce stressors and conflicts and understand how the brain works, and really maximize teaching and create like a safer, healthier teaching environment, right? So when I got started, I was doing this much.
Yeah.
I was not speaking at all. And I have a background in teaching, but I was not actively doing that. I was doing a completely different business, and I just needed a change. And so I was just doing kind of some analyzing of like, what do I want with my life? Where do I want to go? Right, which is about right for my age, right? And I just realized, like, I've always the part of teaching that I love, the part of my other business that I love is when I get to like see those aha moments with people, and it's when I'm in front of a bunch of people and like speaking, and so my husband was like, "So Google speaking engagements." And I was like, what? He's like, no, do it right now.
Yeah.
He doesn't even remember this conversation, right? And so I Googled it, and there's the speaker lab, right? It's one of the first things that popped up, and there was a free workshop, and clicked on that, registered for that, and then they were like, well, if you want to know more, we can do an interview and see if you're a right fit. And I did that, and all of a sudden I was starting this thing, and I was like, I'm so scared and I'm so excited at the same time, right? So, so went through the program, had to pause it because like we had like this family crisis, so I had to pause it for like a couple months even. And then when I finished, I did the work, right? And I got some speaking engagements. And basically what I'm doing now is I'm doing some teacher in-services. I got a contract with one school district to do 8 teacher in-services for them. Wow. So like awesome. 8 speaking engagements. And I got a contract with another another school district to do one like full district in-service, and then individual coaching for their teachers on a monthly basis. So that's where I'm at right now. Right now I'm in negotiations kind of with one of the universities on starting to be able to give teachers credit for like getting to hear me, and like some continuing education, because teachers up here need to have continuing education, and getting credit for when they come and like listen to what I have to say, and continue to get credit for that. So yeah, it's kind of like gone.
One thing, just a practical question. You mentioned a teacher in service. For people who aren't familiar with that, what is that?
So teachers have to do continuing education, just like a lot of other professional degrees out there, lawyers and doctors and professional degrees. They have to keep up with current changes in their profession. And so they have to take classes on a continual basis. They have to keep up with that. And so a lot of school districts will actually hire people to kind of teach or speak to their professional people and keep them up on regular stuff. So that's what teacher in-services are. They take time during their sometimes like the kids don't come to school, but the
Yep.
teachers do. And then I
We
speak to
used to
them.
all love those days.
I
You had to
know,
work
as a
and I
kid,
didn't.
you're
Yeah.
like, yes,
Perfect.
I don't get to go. But as a teacher, you still have
Not
to
so much.
go. Yeah.
So you mentioned like you were a teacher for several years in the
Yeah.
classroom, elementary, middle school, high school. What were you?
High school. I
Okay.
taught high school Spanish and theater,
Okay.
both
All
kind of
right.
chaotic. So
Perfect. So you're doing that for a little while. How long were you in the classroom?
I was in the classroom for about 6 years, and then I had my own kids, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
I gotta take care of them first before I take care of other people's kids. So I took a break from the classroom. Then I homeschooled my own kids for a
Okay.
while because all three of my kids are neurodivergent. So
Okay.
they've got their own challenges with learning.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I ran a whole different business and started that from scratch. So.
Gotcha. All right. So you're in the classroom for 6 years or so, and then homeschooling your own kids. At
Yeah.
what point are you starting to think about speaking, and why speaking? Because there's it's one thing to like I'm home, I'm homeschooling, but maybe I have some time, or I've got
Yeah.
some type of itch, and I don't even know what that itch is. I don't even know where to go to scratch it. Like,
Yeah.
how did speaking kind of come on the radar?
So I will say I don't know exactly like how this works, right? But I've always felt like whenever I went to a conference or whenever I went to like one of these in services or something where I was sitting in a chair listening, I kind of felt like I was in the wrong place. And it's a bizarre thing because when I tell people that, like one of the biggest fears for people is
Oh
to
yeah.
stand in front of other people and
Yeah.
speak, right? And so for me, it's actually the opposite. I always felt like I should be up there, and but for me as a person, right? It's been a huge personal journey in that I would never have voiced that, right? In my 20s and even in my early 30s, I never told a single solitary person that I felt like I was in the wrong place, right? Never said anything to anyone. Um, I am a good teacher. Like I love teaching people. I love creating a learning environment where people get to like have that spark of like, oh, I'm curious about this. I really want to pursue this. But I never told anyone like I love speaking. Like I just do.
Like the reason, what do you feel like the reason was? Do you feel like you were embarrassed or shy, or you think people were
Um,
like,
oh yeah,
who do you think you are to
there's
be a
all
speaker?
kind yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in my past. But of course there's a fear of what that perception is, right?
Yeah.
Like what's the perception of being different, right? Especially when most people go like, well, that's like being like, there's a lot of, well, just want to be the center of attention. Well, not really. It's just a
Yeah.
gifting that I have, right? And so
Yeah.
to be able to come around to a place where actually I own the fact that that's my gift, right? That it's a place and a gift that is innate and given to me for who I am, and to be able to embrace that and just to step into that and
Yeah.
just be like, this is who I am, and this is what I'm made to do, and this is what I'm made to be. So even when I started with the speaker lab, I didn't even know who I was going to talk to, who I was going to speak to, what my audience was going to be. Like, what am I going to talk to? I don't know. I just know that I have this desire, and like, I've done a lot of things in my life. Like, I really have a vast amount of experiences. So what is it that I can like speak to with authority, right? And
Right.
so we kind of, the speaker lab really like helped me hone that down, right, to an audience
Yeah.
and what was good for me. But that's kind of what prompted me to kind of follow this, is kind of finally coming to terms with, no, this is actually something that I actually need to like just own and live into.
You mentioned that, again, this is kind of this internal thing that you'd always been intrigued by, never really told anyone. Do you remember who, this is random, but like, do you remember who the first person was that you would have told, and how they would have responded or reacted?
Yeah. So, I mean, I did tell, like, when I finally told my husband, right, because I had taken, he was actually away on a business trip. So I decided I was going to just take a day like to myself and do like a strategy kind of day for myself, hold myself up in my office and just did some like vision planning, some purpose kind of driven time for myself. And I was processing some stuff, and I was like, man, this is like keeps coming up. And so he called me so we could chat for the day. And I was like, I'm going to tell you something. And, like, looking back, I can't believe I hadn't mentioned it to him, right? We've been married for 25 years this year. like, how do I not tell you this? Like, you're, but, and of course he was like, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
He was like,
what are you even waiting on?
Like, yes, of course this makes sense. Right. And then I told one of my good friends who's known me for 20 years, I don't know, 25 years. And she was like, yep, this makes sense. And I just like, at first I would preface it with like, I know this is a really crazy thing, but, and then everybody that I told that like really knew me well was like, yeah, I mean, if anybody else told me that, I would think it's kind of nuts, but it doesn't surprise me. And it's like, this, my whole life I haven't told anybody because I was so afraid of the response. And the response was just like, yeah.
What do you feel like finally clicked for you? Because you could have lived the rest of your life with this secret. Now, it's obviously like not some crazy deep, dark secret. It's just kind of like this unrealized potential. And something finally tripped and you're like, I gotta tell someone, I gotta try it. I'll give an example. I'm in the midst of this right now. And I'm 43 and I've always thought it would be cool to be able to play the drums. I don't want to be in a band. I don't know anything about music. I love my job. I don't want to go anywhere. I just think it'd be cool to listen to the song and be like, I could play the drums to that, right? Right. So to me, like you tell someone else to be like, yeah, that sounds cool. But in my head, I've built it up as such this big thing of, what, you think you're a rock star now? You think like what, you having some midlife crisis that you're going to start playing the drums? And you just start going through all these voices in your head. It's like, no, I just think it'd be cool, but maybe that sounds dumb, and you start like rationalizing with yourself that this seems completely ridiculous. So all that to say, like just recently, I had a call with a buddy who's a professional drummer, and I was like, okay, dude, I feel like an idiot, but like I kind of want to do this. What do I do? And he's like, this is the best call I've ever got. I'm so excited right now, and he was thrilled for me. I told my wife. And he said, all you got to do, I need you to commit to 4 lessons. Just commit to doing 4 lessons. So I did my first lesson a couple days ago. I went and bought a set. I'm setting it up. My daughters are all into it. They're like, Dad's good. This is awesome, But again, like you just build it up so much in your mind of like, who do you think you are that you're going to be a speaker, that you're going to learn to play the drums? That's adorable, And just like you have these internal voices that just jabber at you, and like I'm a pretty mentally healthy, emotionally healthy, sane person. I still have those same doubts and insecurities. So for you then, like what was it that finally like, okay, enough's enough, I want to do this?
I think just even in my regular everyday life and also in my other business, there was kind of like this feeling of not quite satisfied, right? Like I know kind of like my purpose, my kids are teenagers. The oldest is already out of the house. My second one's headed to college, right? So there's this kind of feeling of like, okay, what am I about? Like, what am I really like doing with my life, right? Which is about right, for the 40s, right? And it's okay, like totally fine, right? And I could have just been like, no, what I'm doing is good, and what I'm doing is right. But I wanted to be intentional about that time, right? And not waste it away, right? Because we can do that. We can totally waste those feelings and just be like, well, just be happy with what you've got. Be good. It's good. It's fine, right? And just like tamp them down and not deal with them. And I'm a life and mindset coach, right? So I'm like, listen to what you say to other people. Right?
Practice what you preach.
Do not waste your time, right? And so I just was like, let's just be intentional. Like, take the time, set it aside, look at what you really want. Look at what are your values? Where do you fit? And did just some inward work, right? Like some inward work to kind of confront just my thought process and my
Yeah.
thinking. And that's kind of when it comes out. And it is really true that when we give ourselves the time and when we stop things and when we're intentional about pursuing our dreams and our goals, that's when we can see things more clearly. Because most of the time we just get so busy in the everyday that we don't take time for those things. And those things are just not going to just happen, right? They're not going to just materialize and just kind of come. We have to take the time and the energy and give them the energy they need in order to kind of address them properly, right?
Yeah.
And so, and of course, I also acknowledge that, like, had I decided this way back in my mid 20s, I probably would not have been ready as a person to take it on with the right mindset,
Yeah.
because I had too many other things that I needed to work on in order to be confident enough, right? And I'm not saying that a person who's in their 20s can't do this, because that's totally not right. But for my path, I had to deal with a lot of stuff in order to be able to get to this point where I was like, I'm going to own this and I'm going to be in it, right? Like, and so in that sense, I think that all of my experiences so far have really kind of allowed me to really walk into this with confidence. I've also run businesses, so that part of it didn't scare me, although I did know that I knew enough to know that I needed somebody else to show me the ropes, right? Like, that's what I needed. I don't know how to do this as a business, and if I'm going to do it as a business, I need the skills.
Yeah.
And that's what I needed, right? And so to know enough to seek out the help that I needed was probably really.
And so from there, like you touched on earlier, it sounds like at that point you're kind of like, maybe I don't know any professional speakers. I don't know. And you kind of turn to Google and like, all right,
Right.
we'll start here and see what that gets. Is that basically what happened for you?
Yeah, totally. Right. It's from my husband's offhand comment that he doesn't even remember. Right. And I was like, well, let's figure this out. And I went to a free workshop, and I was like, this was really good and helpful. And then I followed the next step, right? And it just was the next step. And I was like, yep, this is the right thing. I know that this is the right thing. I've had plenty of mentors and coaches in my life, and I knew that for me, those are always a key component to being successful, right? Having someone who's gone ahead of you, who can give you wisdom, who can give you kind of plans and help you hone the skills you need, but also give you the support when you are going to go through the moments of doubt and like think through and be like, man, can I do this? Absolutely. Like, listen, you need someone who's there that can kind of understand the thought process that you've been through before, and kind of bring some other perspective to you. Right.
How when it comes to speaking, there's a lot of different types of speaking, meaning you could do, keynotes or workshops or breakouts or seminars and short gigs and long gigs and everything in between.
Yep.
In the education space, you mentioned like you do a lot of teacher in services, which could be, just a small workshop, or it could be a full day thing.
Correct.
How did you kind of land on what makes the most sense for you, what you're interested in, but also what organizations, groups, districts may actually hire for?
Well, first I started in my own backyard, right? Like, that makes the most sense. I had connections within the district here, and it made the most sense that I could actually work within this district with very little travel issues, right? Because I'm all the way in Alaska. Travel is a little bit of an issue. And so that made sense. And teachers do have time set aside in order to be educated, right? And have kind of that extra education time. So that made sense. I have looked at some like conferences and things like that, but I also feel like I need to get some kind of momentum behind me too before they're going to hire me for like a keynote address, which I would love to do. And so I started there, right? And I also know that because I'm in Alaska, virtual is going to be super key for me,
Yeah.
right? Like I need to be able to do a virtual teaching because I can then eliminate travel altogether.
Yeah.
And so, and in Alaska, a lot of the school districts here are completely remote, right? You actually cannot get to them through the road system. So you have
Hmm.
to either fly or take a boat to get to them. And I'm not really willing to travel by dog sled. So
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
Which you're not
So,
saying jokingly is like
I am
actually, I'm
not.
sure
I
a
am
real
not.
thing.
Like
Okay. That's wild.
in our school districts, you literally, when you sign a field trip permission form, it says, there's a form you can fill out that says, I will transport my own child via airplane, boat, or, like all these other
Wow.
options. It is not a joke in Alaska. So, so virtual is for me is a huge thing, and so I also knew I needed the support there, like to be able
Yeah.
to do that. So kind of landing in that space for in services makes the most sense for me right now, but it's not going to be where I'm going to stay, right? Like
Yeah.
it's not. Because I think everybody's business needs to always evolve and constantly grow and constantly change.
Yeah.
It's kind of part of what it means to run a business all the time, right?
Yeah.
So,
I want to go back to the Alaska thing for a second because that is kind of interesting. Where we were talking a little bit before we started recording that I've been to Alaska once. It's absolutely beautiful. If listener, if you haven't been up there, you got to go up there. It's amazing.
yes.
But like you said, it's very remote. And my assumption would be you kind of have Anchorage and Juneau and probably not much beyond those two main hubs. And so when you talk about like from a speaking standpoint, how do you think about like I just live in a very sparsely populated place where automatically the opportunities are limited? Like, are you trying to do anything in the lower 48, or I'd prefer
Absolutely. Yeah.
just for stage of life, I'd prefer to stay here in Alaska, and I just kind of recognize the trade-off there? Or how do you kind of think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I think there are obviously starting in my own backyard, but expanding out is the perfect way to think through that, right? So, between Fairbanks, Anchorage greater metropolitan area, it has 4 school districts. So, and then Juneau, like. And then, of course, most of the Alaskan school districts are kind of used to the idea of virtual, right? Because,
Yep.
and now after COVID, everybody's used to some concept of virtual. But then also speaking outside of Alaska is not. I mean, I am pursuing leads outside of Alaska as well, right? So I started. My teaching career down in California, so I just do still have some connections there, and I've been talking to some of them as well. I've been exploring the idea of what it means to talk to teachers who are just getting started in the teacher education programs.
Yeah.
So I've been speaking to some of the professors down in UCLA and at Fresno Pacific University, and a couple of other actual major like teacher credential programs to kind of get an idea of what the needs are out there so that I can start to make kind of a better plan for myself. But I just went to a conference up here in Anchorage and of course met a ton of speakers from the lower 48. So networking and doing those kinds of connections there as well is going to open up avenues.
I could also see that obviously traveling to Alaska isn't inexpensive. And so I could also see, especially in like the education system where they have limited budgets anyway, of going, here's an option where we could hire someone from the lower 48, or like, here's someone who lives in our backyard that would do an awesome job.
Absolutely.
And so going that route could be an advantage for you. In addition, it's one thing to, hey, I'm from the lower 48 and I've been to, in the education system for a long time. Something else to be like, no, I've taught in Alaska and I know the unique challenges of being a teacher in Alaska. And so I think part of the lesson here for all speakers is like, pay attention to like, what's the home field advantage that you have in something that you can lean into? Like I notice oftentimes speakers, especially early on, would say, like in your case, well, I've been a speaker, I'm tired, or I've been a teacher, I'm tired of being a teacher, I'm tired of being in the education space, I want to do something different. It's like, yeah, but let's start with like this, because it's something you understand the lingo, you understand how they operate, you understand the conferences, you understand the workshops they got to attend, you understand their challenges and obstacles. Like you get that, in addition just to relationships and connections that you have. So it sounds like from what you've expressed that starting with that in the space of you're like, hey, I don't want to do teacher in services forever, but starting there has been an advantage because it's given me like a lot of ways to build some momentum that would be much more difficult in a different setting.
Yeah, and there's like the possibility of even getting rehired and renewing those contracts for the next year, right?
Yeah.
And right now, if I can do that and stay close to home and finish my kids off, and not travel as much, that's a bonus for me, right? So, but I've had people comment and like, man, this would be great in the corporate community. This would be great in the whatever, right? Like, because it's not, what I'm speaking on is really how the brain works and behavior and conflict. That applies to any area, right? So if I ever wanted to branch out and speak to other communities, I absolutely could, right? It's not limited to the teacher education field, but that's where I had that's where I feel like I can speak with the most authority right now, right? And so as we get started, it's a totally different kind of perspective than it will be 10 years from now, where I will be like, okay, now I have different points of leverage. Can speak with different authority because I've got a ton of experience and I can shift and I can change and I can tweak it or change avenues or change courses or bring it into a different place. Because I've run a business before, I kind of get that, get that idea of where I am now isn't where I'm going to be. And, but where I am now is a benefit to where I want to be, right? It's just a stepping stone to where I want to be. And so, there are probably some people who start out and go straight to maybe huge keynote speaking stages. Is that something I want? Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to speak to 2,000 people, 3,000 people at a time. I love that kind of stage. But is that realistic for me right now? Probably not yet. Am I going to get there? Yeah. I mean, I just have to do the steps that I need to do to get there, right? So, and it depends. Some people might get there much faster because they have the right connections and they have the right network, or they're in the right place at the right time, or whatever. I'm completely happy with where I'm at, right? I've totally made my return on investment has been big with this program, and I'm happy to see where it's going. But I never got into this thinking this would be a hobby, right? This was not. When I decided I was going to do this, I was like, I want to do this because I want to make this a business. I want to do this as something that I do as a career, right? If you just want to do it as a hobby, then it's just always going to be a hobby.
Yep. So well said. Okay, here's what I need everyone to do. I need you to go back to the last 30 seconds, and I need you to listen to that again and play it on repeat over and over and over and over and over. Because you're exactly right, Amy, that it's one thing to come in and kind of kick the tires and hey, it would be kind of cool if this, if I could book a gig here or there. And if you put in hobby amateur effort, you're going to get hobby amateur results. And you can't be I'm going to kick the tires and hope that magically I'm going to be super successful. It just doesn't work like that. And that's not exclusive to speaking. That's true with anything. I recognize okay, dude, if you're going to learn to play the drums, you got to actually put the time in. You got to put the work and effort and energy into it. And the results are going to be relative to the energy and effort that you're putting into it. If you're, if you're wanting to, be really, really insanely good, then you better be putting in really insanely good amounts of time into that thing. And that's just the way life works. So do you think that that's a something that can be taught, or do you feel that that's just, you either have that or you don't?
Oh no, it's a skill. It's just like anything else, right? It is, it's just a mindset shift, right? You just have to understand that if I treat something like It might be okay. It might not be okay. That's exactly what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Right? If you decide that this is something you want, you're never going to put enough effort into something unless you want it more than the effort costs.
Yeah, that's good.
That's just right. Like that's what I coach my people on all the time. Like unless you want it more than the amount of effort it costs, you will never do it. And
Yeah.
that's with anything. I mean, if you're talking weight loss or you're talking about like quitting an addiction or you're talking about anything, if you don't want it more than the amount of effort, it's just not going to get there. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're like, I just want it as a hobby, but it's going to cost me this much effort, then you're going to be like, no, it's too much work. Right. Because it's just a hobby. It's just a hobby. So until we decide that I want it for these reasons and it's worth the amount of effort, then when it costs you, and some days it's not as much effort and some days it's a lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm in a high effort moment right now, right? I love the moments when I'm out there and teaching and it feels good, but there's also a lot of moments behind the scenes where I'm like, I'm sending another email or I'm following up with another phone call or I'm putting in time right now that I'm like, I'm so tired. But you know, like it's like that with anything that is truly worth it is worth the effort.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is always worth the effort. And so, you know, there's lots of Google how to write a good speech. If you want to do a graduation speech out there and you're like, I want to just know how to do a good speech, Google how to do a graduation speech. But if you want to actually run a business,
Yeah.
then you need to know how to run a business. And that's, I think, what the Speaker Lab does, right? Like that's the scaffolding that you
Sure.
need. And I could just go on about that all day long because that's what I do as a mindset coach, right?
Let's wrap up with this. The if we go back, let's say 2-3 years ago or so, and you're intrigued by being a speaker, and you've kicked it around in your head for a long time. You finally express it, and you're just trying to figure out like, okay, do I want to? It's always kind of like, do I want to take the next step, and do I want to take that step, the step after that, and so on and so forth. You have, like you said, you have continually taken those steps. You've been very successful as a result of that.
Yeah.
You've impacted, a ton of teachers across Alaska and beyond. You've made thousands and thousands of dollars as a professional speaker.
Yep.
What would you say to that Amy of 2-3 years ago, or someone who may be listening who's in that same spot right now?
I would probably say, I know it feels scary, but it's worth it, and step into it, scared or not.
It's good.
Any type of change is always going to feel uncomfortable. Always. Growth never happens in the comfort zone. It just doesn't. You have to step out of your comfort zone in order to experience growth. And so doing something new requires doing it scared. It just does. And it's better to do it scared with like a safety net and a community that's going to support you, right? Than to do it scared and be alone.
Yeah.
Doing it scared alone is so much harder, and it kind of almost puts us into a place of paralysis, which is too far out into the uncomfortable zone, right? So it's good to know yourself, obviously, but it's also then good to know that you have to step right outside of that always in order to grow. Yeah. And if we're not growing, we're stagnant. And who wants to be stagnant in their life, right? Yeah. There is no fulfillment in that. There is, because if we don't grow, we die, right? Like that's like who we are kind of just shrivels up. So we need to step outside of that. Yeah. But it is uncomfortable for a while. And once it gets comfortable, you have to like step into the next part of being uncomfortable. And I'm sorry, everyone, but it's just life, right? Like you're constantly stepping into the next level of uncomfortableness in order to keep growing, right? But it's worth it. It's so worth it.
Very much so. You remind yourself of that of speaking. I'll remind myself of that with drums, and we'll get there together. Amy, this has been a ton of fun. We really appreciate you taking the time. If people want to find out more about you and what you're up to, where can we find you online?
AmyBurtonCoach.com. So,
AmyBurtonCoach.com. We'll link that up. Amy, we appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Grant. Appreciate it.